So you want to become a dungeon tuber? Well, I'm Wes Allen with DM Tales, and here's some advice I have for you to get started on your dungeon tubing journey. Let's roll it. When we start creating content, particularly if we're creating content to be made public, our mental framework is important. And for me personally, I think it's even more important than getting all the technical bits and bobs right, because our mental framework is going to impact our goals, our interactions with other folks, and the type of content we make. So if you're considering becoming a dungeon tuber, here's my mentality tips. Be positive. I'll make this bit of advice short and sweet. Commit to bringing others joy through your videos. Offer critiques, but make them constructive. And say what you like and you don't like. That's fine. But remember that our preferences, they're not universal. And when someone disagrees with an opinion, embrace the opportunity to learn a different perspective. And most importantly, when trolls show up, and they will show up, feel bad for them because they've got joy and misery flipped inside their own heads. And really, that's just sad. See, I think if we commit to being a constructive and positive presence, our voices are going to carry more weight when we do end up feeling like we need to address some sort of controversy or negative topic about our hobby. At least, that's how I see it. Smack imposter syndrome upside the head. This is the biggest mental hurdle you may have to get over. At least it was for me, so I'm projecting it on to you. Creating something for other folks to see and comment on, that's terrifying. We have no idea how people will receive the things we create, and so it's easy to convince ourselves we've got nothing worth saying because we can't be disappointed if we don't try. But if you want to share your experiences with this hobby on YouTube, do it. And don't compare yourself to the large channels. Remember, most of those folks have had years to find their style. They have folks who do their editing for them, and they have had a whole lot of time to put together some upgraded equipment. It's not fair to you to compare yourself to others. Go ahead and learn on the fly. Do your best and know that you're a dungeon tuber as soon as you make something and post it. It doesn't matter how many people see your video. You've entered the conversation. Congratulations. Don't chase the algorithm. This is probably the best generic YouTube advice I can give. It is tempting to look at what other folks are posting and try to emulate it. And heck, YouTube wants you to do that because their algorithm tells them that you'll get more hits that way, which just means more advertising revenue for Google. But when you chase the algorithm, you aren't necessarily talking about things you want to talk about. Instead, you'll be forcing yourself into trying to do what other successful dungeon tubers are doing. And if you can't crack the code to the enigmatic algorithm, that slog can suck a whole lot of joy out of you. And for me, well, sharing my thoughts and my ideas through YouTube, that should be a joyful experience. Just my thought. On the other hand, I do use the term dungeon tuber and put it in my descriptions and in my keywords, so I may just be a profound hypocrite. Make connections. This is a piece of advice I have a difficult time following. There are times when I suffer from crippling imposter syndrome, which is why I tried to tell you to smack it upside the head. And that imposter syndrome will often get blended with a profound inability to remember names. I am terrible at it. So making connections for me is something to which I have to apply a good deal of effort. But I put that work in because making connections in this hobby for everyone, not just for dungeon tubers, is what makes it awesome. And as a dungeon tuber, it's helped me keep plugging away making these videos. I'm still here doing this because I've made wonderful connections with folks, and even better for me is I've been able to help other folks connect with each other. I hate to make a list because I know I'm going to forget something, but I do need to shout out some of the folks who have made this journey so great here on DM Tales. The gang at Avenue Studios, John from Sharp Mountain Games, Dave from Grimwood Games, Dave from Gamers on Daves, the Daves, the gang at Cypher Unlimited, Doug Shute from Victory Condition Gaming, the Dungeon Minister, Chris Gonerman from Basic Fantasy RPG, Ron from Philly Area Gaming Expo, Daddy Rolled a One, Todd Lyons from BFRPG, Kate and Charles from Monty Cook Games, and all the folks who watch and comment on my videos. And I can't forget to shout out all the amazing designers who have come on my channel to talk about their projects. Thank you. See, it is tempting to look at video numbers and feel either elated or deflated depending on how they go. I do that. That's something I fall into all the time. But because I'm reminding you, I'm also reminding myself. The YouTube numbers, they're a fringe benefit. Make your goal sharing your voice, connecting with other folks who just might become friends. And that makes this YouTube journey a whole lot more valuable. And now for the technical tips. And please take these all with a grain of salt because I am a rank amateur at best. You've already got your first camera. It's your phone. In fact, your phone might even be the only camera you use if all you're doing is recording videos. I mean, if you're planning on doing some interviews or going on live streams, you might need to get something a bit more dedicated. But there's even ways around that if you look around. See, I know that iPhones in particular are able to be used as webcams on Macs, but if you use something like Video Ninja, you can send your phone's camera to anywhere just by giving someone a URL. The fact is, a phone is going to be worlds apart from even high-end webcams, and it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. If you record videos on your phone and you're happy with how they look, well, that's really all you need. Now, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of things like color balance and shutter speed and frame rate and ISO and focus modes, there's a whole lot of fun to be had there, and I am guilty of diving into it because I just enjoy that sort of thing. But really, most folks in our culture already own the best camera they're ever going to own. And see, while I ended up doing this backwards because I love photography and I migrated into video content, a camera is actually the last piece of equipment I recommend folks upgrade because your phone is more than good enough as long as you're happy with the results. Sound is every bit as important as video. This is something that folks often miss, but bad audio can ruin even the best video. If you're going to purchase a piece of equipment, the first thing I recommend is a microphone of some sort, because it's going to cut down room noise that happens when our voices bounce off the walls and then into the mic. It creates that little echo sound, and they just have a better overall sound quality to the ear in general. I am not a great sound guy by any stretch of the word, but even I can tell when sound is bad. And I've got some examples of horrible sound in some of my earlier videos where I just messed up. Sound can get very complex if you want to dive in all the way, but I've tended to stick with USB microphones simply because of their plug-and-play nature. I've used a number of mics over the years, and my current default, which is a Rode NT USB Plus, is perfect for my setup. It's also kind of pricey if you're just getting started out at $169. Slightly cheaper, but still with good sound quality, is something like the newer CM28 wireless mic system. It's just over $100 right now, and it has 2 transmitters, so you could actually have another person on camera with you, and it's got some nice noise cancellation and comes with both Lightning and USB connectors on the receiver. So if you happen to be using your phone as a camera, you're good to go no matter what platform you're on. The CM28 receiver also has a 3.5mm output, so you can connect it to a DSLR or mirrorless camera as well. It's pretty nice. Lights are nice to have. After a microphone, lights are the first thing I recommend folks consider picking up. I've got some smaller USB lights that I first started using, but they just weren't powerful enough to be much good in my setup. So eventually I picked up a 2-light set from Newer for about $200. And again, if you're on a budget, that might seem out of reach, but the same set's now down to a little over $100 on Amazon, and that's really a steal for the 2 lights. The question a lot of folks have is, well, why would I bother getting lights? I have lights on my ceiling, I have lamps over here. What good does it do? Well, first, a light just gives the camera sensor a lot more consistent light with which it can work. And that means your camera doesn't need to increase its ISO, which means that your image is going to be a lot less noisy. It's not going to have that grainy feel to it. Lights also help you control the temperature of the color so you can have a better expectation of how the camera is going to record things. It doesn't look weird when you watch it later on. You also get to control how the light fills the space, which can cut down on things like shadows, which is not something I'm terribly great at, but it does really help even in my setup. And look, I know enough about lights to be dangerous, so I'm not going to say anything more than I've already said here, but there are a ton of great videos on YouTube which can give you the basics. And if you want to start making videos, they are worth checking out. My recommendation is to look for a 2 or a 3-point lighting video setup, and that will help you get started really, really well. Pay attention to your framing and backdrop. So there's this thing called the rule of thirds in both photography and videography. And basically what it is an imaginary tic-tac-toe board that overlays the field of view where the lines cut the screen into equal thirds. The rule of thirds says that an object which is in frame that's positioned on the third line, they're going to draw our eyes more. And objects which are located where two lines intersect, well, that's even better. So when you're framing a video, check out where your eyes are, because you do not want them in the middle center box of the field of view. First, it makes you look like you're trying to hide from the camera over here. And then second, our eyes just aren't naturally drawn there. What I try to do is keep my eye level along that top third line, so most of me is in frame, and then I try to position myself along one of the vertical lines so my eyes are right at the intersection point. It creates a much more compelling visual. Also, and please understand I am terrible at this as well, pay attention to what's in the background. If you're in a room, clear out the clutter. If you're in front of a shelf, clean up its look. If there's a blank area in the background somewhere, fill it up with knickknacks or a poster or a single shelf of books. Also, it's a really good idea to make sure that the background is illuminated a bit with lamps or an LED strip or even a spare light that you may have picked up to make sure that folks can see your set. Because the way you frame shots and the setup of your space can help invite folks in. So it's a good thing to have in mind. So those are just a few of my tips for folks who might want to start their DungeonTube journey. Are there things that I missed that you'd recommend for folks to remember? Let me know in the comments below. I am back to reading Pendragon after my crazy week last week, so expect a review of that in the near future. Also, I need to get started with plans for EcclesiaCon 2025, so expect to hear more about that very, very soon. And I also have so many more books to read and so many cool plans ahead to share with all of you, including hopefully some live stream actual plays that I can finally get out that just share with folks and play cool games with people. I'm really looking forward to it. But until we see each other again, folks, happy playing, everyone.